Hey, this is Eric from Catching Light.
Hey, this is Hemp.
Hey, this is Glenn.
Hi, I'm Steve-O.
Hey, this is Drew Hines with Hindsight Imagery.
This is Matt Callahan at Digimatty Photographic Services.
Hey, this is Jason, and welcome to Tales from the Pit. Hello and welcome to Tales from the Pit, the behind-the-lens access for concerts and photography. Today, we have photographer Jenn Devereaux. Jenn, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. So we always like to get started with maybe a little bit of a history of our guests. So could you maybe give us some, overview of how you got into photography or concert photography, whatever it is? Just give us some background.
Sure. Yeah. So I guess I got into music by way of sneaking MTV. I wasn't allowed to watch MTV as a kid, so I would sneak it, and I was just like obsessed with music, and then, looking at magazines and things like that, I always looked at the pictures and I was like, oh, that's awesome. I want to do that one day. But I really didn't think that I would ever get to do that, I guess. But so there's a couple of different instances that got me to where I am. One of them was when I went to see my favorite band, which is Veruca Salt. I saw them at the Masquerade in Atlanta, and the lead singer, Louise Post, basically like pulled me into the pit and was like, you're not getting any good shots from that angle, so come up here and try to get some better shots this way. So I was like, that was my first taste of like shooting from the pit. And then like many years went by, and I would go to festivals and I'd always try to sneak in my camera, because at that point, like festivals, they would allow you to bring in disposable cameras, but they wouldn't allow you to bring in digital cameras. And this was like at the beginning of like everyone having like those digital point and shoot cameras. So I really wanted to have like great images, even though it was a terrible, like I want to say like a 4 point something megapixel camera. I was not getting anything good from those pictures, but I would take a disposable camera box, I would open it, get the new camera out, and then I put my point and shoot into the camera and glue it shut, and then take it into festivals, and I would just have my camera, and I thought I was getting some amazing shots with my digital camera, and I was being so slick. But then one year at Voodoo Fest in New Orleans, I went to go see Smashing Pumpkins, which is another one of my favorite bands. And I had fought my way up to the front. And like as a fan, when you go to festivals, like you're just there in the hot sun all day, and you're just like trying to get up to the front to see your favorite band. I had been there all day, and I was finally got up to the front. And then I see, like right before the band comes on, I see this slew of like photographers like right in front of me. Like I had fought my way to the front, and here these photographers were in front of me. I'm like, I could do that. I want to do that. So I took on a second job, and I got a digital SLR camera. It was my first one. It was a Nikon D40X. I don't even remember the megapixels on that thing, but I reached out to a local newspaper, and I was like, look, if you give me like a letter of, what do they call it back then? It was the like I don't even remember what it was called, but basically if you'll write to these publicists and let them know that I'm shooting for you, I'll give you free pictures. And they're like, sure. And I had never met this girl before. She was the editor of this old newspaper, and she took a chance on me. My first credentialed show was Taste of Chaos in Biloxi, Mississippi. It was Bullet for My Valentine, Avenged Sevenfold, and a bunch of like Japanese rock bands. And that was my first show. And my images from those shows, because I hadn't learned my camera, I had everything in like this weird auto mode. They were terrible. Like the images were horrible, but that was my first credentialed show. And I eventually like reached out to my local radio station, and I was like, look, here's my portfolio of these awful images that I took at this festival. Would you let me take some pictures of some shows for you? And they were like, sure, why not? And so I ended up shooting some more concerts, and then a year had rolled by, and I had gotten approved and credentialed for that Voodoo Fest for the very next year. So I was in the pit the very next year of Voodoo Fest, the Voodoo Fest that I saw previously, that I was like, oh, I'm definitely going to do that. I made it. And I was like, from there, I just kind of like reached out to different outlets. I shoot for a wire agency occasionally now, and I also am now the house photographer with Fillmore, New Orleans, which I love. Which unfortunately they're not up and running right now due to COVID, but it's a good gig. I would say being a house photographer is a good gig, as you guys know, I'm sure.
Yep. So a lot to unpack there. There's a lot of information. The common theme is you're not afraid to go out there and put your name in the hat and try to jump on and do something cool.
That's
so that's
the first thing I picked
awesome.
up on. Congratulations.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really cool.
Yeah.
You know, coming from a background where, you know, being too shy, you want to do all this cool stuff, but you're so shy, you know, that's my background. And you're just like, I want to do that, but I don't dare. And I don't know what to do. I don't know who to ask. So congrats on just doing it, just getting out there, just doing it. So,
and Jen, your pictures are fantastic.
Yeah. And we'll get
to that, but
we'll get to this. Some really, really cool shots, but, so let's go back a little bit. Now, did you have prior photography training before any of this concert stuff?
I mean, I had dabbled in like just photography with like I have 3 kids. So like I picked up like taking pictures of them when they were at a young age. And, you know, I did film. But then I felt like when everything switched over to digital SLRs, I was basically learning it all over again. To me, it was completely different. So I had to learn that again. So when I went to using the digital SLR, I didn't remember anything from when I was using film. And so it was just kind of learning. It was a learning curve for sure. For several years, I was shooting in JPEG and not RAW. I was on auto mode, and it was just terrible. And you can tell in the pictures how terrible it was. But I mean, I didn't have any previous like experience with something as active as like concert photography, and that was a struggle for me at first because everything's moving so fast, especially like in rock, you know, music. There's just, you know, a lot of movement, and that was really hard for me because I was used to, you know, taking pictures outside of my kids, and they weren't like moving that fast. So it was a struggle to learn, but I had to basically learn my camera all over again.
And where did you grow up? Where were you based out of?
So I'm born and raised in Columbus, Mississippi, but I live in Hattiesburg, Mississippi right now. So it's about 3 hours from there. But I've lived here for probably like 14 years now in Hattiesburg. So I kind of call this home base. We're about an hour and a half from New Orleans and like about an hour and a half from Biloxi. That's the biggest local like areas where like shows actually come to. So I do have to travel a good bit to get to shows. So to go to like my house gig at New Orleans, it was like several days a week, an hour and a half drive there, hour and a half drive back. But to me, it was worth it.
That is exactly my scenario. I'm a 2-hour drive because I'm in Portland, Maine. Our venue is in New Hampshire, and it's a 2-hour drive for me. So I did the exact same thing as you. So I would just kind of strategically plan my shows over days that I can, you know, comfortably drive late at night or whatever. So I totally get that. Absolutely.
There's been many times where I have slept in the back of my car just to get a little bit of sleep before I have to be at work at my day job the next day. So, I mean, I completely understand that. I mean, we do a lot of sacrificing for this gig.
Hardcore too. Wow.
Yeah, that's totally. Good. So you had mentioned Nikon. Was Nikon your first camera?
It was. Nikon has always been kind of like my go-to. I did research before I actually bought into Nikon. I knew that they had like good low light settings, and you know, going to concerts, I know that that's going to be an issue. So I did some research, and Nikon was what kept coming back to me as far as good with low light situations. So that's why I went with Nikon.
Nice. Yeah. We have one Nikon user in the white hat next to you on my screen anyways, but we have a mix. So I'm a Sony user.
Cool.
Steve, what are you, Canon?
I'm Canon. Yep.
Yeah. Three Canon guys and 2 Nikon guys. No, 3 Nikon guys.
What?
There's a few other guys. Drew's Nikon.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Maddie's Nikon.
I thought he switched to Sony, but yeah, okay.
But he's got a Sony mirrorless, correct?
Yeah.
Cool.
And then Messier's Canon.
Yeah. Jen, do you shoot mirrorless? Have you thought about going that direction?
I've really been thinking about it. I haven't made the switch yet. I actually just bought another body, the Nikon D850. So it's going to probably be a while. I'm not a big gearhead. I only buy when it's broken. And I had a Nikon D700 that was basically like taped together and the focus kept going in and out. So it was time to get a new body. And I knew I had borrowed a friend of mine's D850 Todd Young at a festival. And I really loved the colors on it because one thing I loved about the D700 was the color profile on it. I still go back to it, even though it's kind of like a broken camera. I just love the color profile on it. But the D850 was the one that came closest to that. I have not even tried the mirrorless. I'm just worried that it'll be like another learning experience, and I've
heard that
habit. So
I suspect once you try the mirrorless, you'd be like, "Oh man, I'm missing out. I need to convert."
Yeah, I shoot weddings, and so I have with the mirrorless, it's so much more quieter than the digital SLR. So I know that I will love it. I just don't think that I'm ready to make that jump financially yet.
Oh yeah, I get it. I
hear you there.
And Nikon does have a killer new digital mirrorless camera too. So I
think Drew just bought one.
I hear you with the financial. I just bought a 5D Mark IV that I haven't even had a chance to shoot shows with yet. I bought it last spring, and
I've bought 2 cameras this year for concerts. One is coming tomorrow, and I bought a Sony at the beginning of the year. So so I totally understand. We're probably more gearheads than you said you were, but I totally understand the limits on budget with these lenses are so expensive and stuff like that. Absolutely. Oh, yeah. I have kids myself, so my camera budget can only come from extra income. So I have to go out and hustle to get that.
And we didn't work this year, so that put a big hole.
That slowed everything down. So you had mentioned Todd, and Todd is the photographer. Him and his brother are the photographer for Zach Brown. No, I'm sorry, Jason Aldean. Sorry. And I believe Todd is a Nikon spokesperson.
Yes. And I will say that he is fantastic at what he does. He's a champion for photographers. If you need advice, go follow his Twitter. He also has, that's actually how I learned my camera was going to his site when I first started at ishootshows.com. What I loved about it was that he broke down the equipment he used, the settings he used in each image, which when I was reaching out to photographers at the time, it was like, it's super competitive. So nobody wants to give, that kind of, it's a lot of gatekeeping involved. In that. And so when I went to his site, it was like, this was amazing. And it was the information that I needed that I wasn't, getting from, reaching out to other photographers at the time. So I really enjoyed his website, and he still does like some great, like articles involving like photography. So I highly recommend going to his website for that. But yeah, he's just a great like photographer, and generally champions all of the photographers out there and gives the best advice that you possibly can, like to anybody. You get on his Twitter, ask him a question, he'll respond. He's usually really good about that. Yeah,
I think he also has a Creative Live training course as well.
He does, yes.
Yeah, very cool. And I think that if I saw correctly, you were also part of like, was it a Nikon event or something like that?
Yeah, I was at a Nikon panel, and it was at CES in Las Vegas, and it was for concert photography, which I thought was amazing because like you don't really see a lot of panels like that. I mean, you see landscape and sports, but to kind of feature concert photography, that was an amazing thing. And to have like to be on that panel with like Robert and Knight and Todd Young, and then it was just like such, and Baron Woolman was supposed to be on that panel as well, so I was really excited to meet him. But he there was some reason why he couldn't come. I couldn't remember, but it was just such a great experience. Probably one of the best experiences of my life. And also I'm a super awkward person, so it was just, I was very nervous. So that was interesting, but it was fun. It was, and we were in front of a lot of people because it was at a panel for CES, but also too, they were live streaming it. So that made me even more nervous. So, but it was a lot of fun. And because of Todd, I got on that panel. He had recommended me. So,
what year was this?
That was, I think it was 2017, I believe. 2017 or 2018. I cannot remember. My years are I'm getting older. All my years are running together.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Did you have to like do a presentation and everything for that? Did you
No,
have
thank goodness, because I don't think that I could have done that. I am just so terrible at public speaking. So it was basically just us on the panel, and we were asked like several questions about like the industry and things like that, and how we got the shots we did. And what was really cool is like as we're talking, like our images are like behind us, and that was just such a cool experience. And being that I've shot Nikon now for gosh, how many years is it now? Like 12, 13 years now.
Wow.
It was just like kind of a surreal experience to be on the Nikon panel.
That's
So,
great.
so Jen, you've been shooting for a while, obviously. You said 12, 13 years. Is that concert shooting?
Yeah, so that's to my extent of concert shooting. So I think my first credential show was that Taste of Chaos show, which was 2008. 12 years. Yeah, so it's been about 12 years.
Nice. That's a nice achievement too, having that Nikon booth or whatever. Yeah, that's awesome. Super cool. Let's go back to a few other things. So let's kind of talk about. So you kind of got your first show by sneaking your camera in and stuff like that. I can relate to that as well. So as you're starting to shoot for publications and they're starting to trust you and stuff like that, are you getting a lot of shows? Or are you just getting like maybe a couple a year? Were you able to pick shows, or what was that like?
So starting out, it was a little bit harder because I had reached out to some blogs. Now I will say when I shot radio, it was easy to get approval. And also back then it didn't feel like it was as hard to get approval as it is now.
Oh, yeah.
They definitely want to know exactly what kind of content is being, is it going to be a gallery? Is there going to be a write-up? Whereas back when I first started, it was not the case at all. It was just like, oh, you shoot for radio? Okay, yeah, for sure. But as I started getting more like smart about how I was going to apply for shows. If I had heard like that early in the tour that they weren't accepting wire agencies, I would not apply through my wire. I'd apply through an outlet I was shooting for. Or if they wanted a write-up that had to be done with, I would basically reach out to other photographers and kind of see like who, like what shows, like what like outlets they were with.
Right.
And I heard Paramore was only allowing write-ups, or maybe it was Pink. It might've been Pink, was only allowing like write-ups. So I'd reach out to my outlet that I shoot where I do like reviews. I don't like writing. I hate writing, but if it warrants me getting into a show that I want to shoot, I'll definitely do it. It'll take me hours. I will sit there for hours to try to write an article, but, and then like, as I got into a wire agency, I thought that it would be a lot easier to get approved, but as it turns out, there's a lot of artists that don't really approve wire just because they have no control over where those images go. So once you upload it to wire, there can be any outlet that picks those up and they don't know if you've taken a good shot of them. I mean, I try to only upload the best images of the artist, but there are some people out there that will upload pictures where they look terrible. I mean, you think about that Beyonce picture that went viral, I think it was for the Super Bowl or something. And then now she only has her photographer that is allowed to take pictures on tour. And I don't blame her. So she has control over that. But so wire agencies was harder. And then as I just got smart with how I was applying to make sure that I was getting approved. I went with the right, outlet.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think I'll probably refer to Steve, because Steve's been with our venue by far the longest, and he's seen the change over the history of concert photographers, what they're allowed, and what, the history of how that's changed. And it sounds like you've equally been around the time. So I don't know if you both want to talk about sort of how it was when it started and how it has been most in the last several years, and the difference in, shooting photography for actual concerts.
It's the first thing I thought of when she started talking about how things have changed from 2008 to now, or what, 2000 or 2019. I started at the venue in 2011. Would have been my first season. So this would have been my 10th season overall this last year. And I shot the first 2 years I was by myself. So I shot every show, and then access slowly got peeled back. But I think 2017, 2015, somewhere in there. Would you agree that that's when things started changing fairly rapidly?
Yeah, it seems like it was pretty recently in the past. Yeah, I would say probably in the last, probably I'd say probably the last 3 to 5 years, and especially you'd see it like especially in festivals, it got stricter and stricter with festivals. Like shows and such, it depended on the artist, but with festivals, it got stricter and stricter, and it's still to this day really super strict on certain festivals to get approval.
It sounds like you have a lot of experience shooting festivals. You go back to that often, and you know we're pretty limited to what we have access to festivals because they come to us.
Do you ever have like artists at your venue that don't allow the house photographers to shoot?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had one a couple years ago.
There's been some artists that I haven't been able to shoot. The one that comes to mind the most is probably Bob Dylan.
Yes.
He's been in there, I think, 3 times. And because, we will work the other aspects of the show as well, the midway and the tailgating and, sponsor stuff and all of that. And then when the show starts, we can go home. They don't want us in the pavilion at all.
Yeah,
I know there's other artists that's been the case, but
Yeah.
that's the one that comes to mind off the top of my head here.
Yeah, we've had, I think when Willie Nelson came, he came with Bonnie Raitt and Alison Krauss. We were allowed to shoot everything except for Bonnie Raitt, which was quite ironic because Bonnie Raitt looked fantastic and sounded fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, you're kind of missing out on some great opportunities here. But yeah, we definitely get that.
I definitely see it a lot in the country artists. There seems to be like a memo that they all got where it was like, no photographers, because I feel like at my venue, it's been mainly country photographers that don't even allow house photographer. And funny enough, I think Willie Nelson was one of them that did not allow a house photographer.
I would say that if you look at our venue is a predominantly country venue.
True. Yeah.
And they have cultivated these relationships with the people from Nashville over the years. And maybe we'll find out when we get back into this, either this summer or the next. We've had pretty good luck getting access to the bigger country acts. We've all had Aldine and Zach Brown and Eric Church, and I agree with you. They all certainly got a memo that this is how everything kind of changed 2 summers ago. You had certain amount of access and all that, but it's certainly, I would say, Bridget and RJ's relationship allows us better access than maybe what you're finding in other parts of the country.
Sure. Jen, when you first started, you were doing official shooting, were you only limited to the first 3 songs or anything like that? Did that change a lot for you?
Yeah. So like you're talking about at my venue.
Yeah. Or just in general.
It's funny because I assumed that with house photography, I would get more access like that. But as it turns out, they give the same rules. I will say at our venue that it's not that many photographers are there. So it's usually, sometimes it's just me. Sometimes it's just like 1 or 2 people. There's been a few times where I've been able to get stage access. It's very rare. I think the best moment that I've ever had at that venue was I'm a big Foo Fighters fan. And I think they knew that I was a big Foo Fighters fan. So when I got there, they were like, oh, you can shoot the whole show. The first 3 songs from the pit, you can shoot the whole show from like the crowd or whatever. And we have like these VIP areas on the side where it kind of like goes up and there's a balcony a little bit. It's not a balcony, but it's like a riser of some sort, but it's built into the venue. And so I was able to shoot from there. And then I got a message on my phone from Alex, who is, she's the one that basically gave me the job there. So I love her to death. She messaged me and she's like, oh, I'm going to need you to come backstage because we need to get a picture of all the employees with Dave Grohl. And I was like, I'll be there. I'll be there, and I'll be there very early. So I got some pictures of him interacting with some VIP fans, and then I got to get a shot of the employees with him. And I think one of my biggest regrets is not asking if I could get a picture with him. I just wanted to be very professional, but that's still a big regret because I mean, I absolutely love the Foo Fighters. So, I mean, it does have its
No regrets. You did a good job.
Yeah, you might get the chance again. You never know.
Yeah. So, I mean, like there's some times where we'll get comedians. A lot of the times comedians don't really grant access to even house photographers. But then there was this one time where they hired me to do Chelsea Handler's meet and greet photos. So I did those and that was really cool. But really though, I don't get a lot of extra access and I'm okay with that. I mean, our stage is not, it's not huge. So like, you'd be on top of the artist being on stage anyway. So it's not going to be like where I'd be getting some like epic shots, like from behind the drummer or anything like that. So right. I don't mind just doing the first 3 songs and leaving. I will say that when we do like soundboard shots, because there are some artists that even make the house photographers shoot from soundboard.
We know.
We know that well.
I don't really like that too much. And I do a lot of soundboard shots, like even not at my house, at the house venue. Like I'll do them like at like the Smoothie King Center, which is close by New Orleans. And that will be like super far away, but there's just something about like at the house venue, like the lighting is a little bit different from behind. So I get good crowd shots, but like from the artist point of view, I don't get as good a shots as I would like, honestly.
I just want to point out that you're talking to 3 Yankees and the fact that you're shooting at a venue called Smoothie King, it's very Southern.
Yes, yeah, is actually our big venue. Well, the Superdome is technically our bigger one. So like Beyonce and Jay-Z will be at the Superdome, but most of the big shows like Jonas Brother, Katy Perry, or Pink will be at the Smoothie King Center. So I do shoot a lot there, and I do like the people that work there. They're amazing there too.
What's the capacity at that venue? Your venue?
Oh, I don't even know. I couldn't even guess. I'm terrible at that. I know the Smoothie King is the biggest one. I mean, I'm sorry, the Superdome is bigger. So Smoothie King it's pretty big. Like it's probably, I don't even want to guess and tell you wrong.
I'm going to look it up.
Ours is about what, 9,000 or something like that?
Yep. 9,500 something like that.
Yeah. So we're relatively small.
Yeah, and we're an outdoor venue too. So
it was an amphitheater.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah, so for people watching this who may not know, because we're talking a lot of photography in-house shop here. So generally what happens, and again, this is for people watching this that have no experience in this, us photographers are given sets of rules. We can shoot from certain areas. So the pit or the barricade is usually at the front of the stage, usually at the foot of the artist, depending on the size of the stage. And then you have the soundboard, shooting from soundboard or front of house is usually shooting from way back halfway to where the soundboard actually is. So obviously, as you mentioned, we would much prefer to be able to get down front than we would with the soundboard because we're far away. We have to zoom. I find artists generally who are more worried about the way they look will force us to go shoot at the soundboard, and they'll probably limit us to a song or 2 songs, 3 songs, whatever.
Smoothie King is just under 18,000.
Oh wow!
Oh yeah, so it's much bigger than anything we're shooting.
Way bigger than double
our
us.
size. Yeah,
yeah.
That's good size.
So we at our venue we probably have 7 photographers, something like that.
I think there was 8 of us.
8 total.
Yeah.
And it depends on the show. Some shows there'll be as many as 3 of us, and a lot of shows will just be 1 or 2 of us, depending on the size of the artist and what's going on for the excitement and all that stuff. Now for us,
you have to put in like which ones you want to shoot or who gets precedence and all that kind of stuff.
So that was going to be my next question to you: is how do you guys determine what you want to do for shows?
That's for you.
That's for you, Jen. Yeah, you're the star of the show here.
Actually, I'm the only one at my house. I'm the only house photographer at my venue.
Oh,
so
lucky.
They basically are like, here's the rundown. You're approved for these shows. Do you have time? Can you come in to shoot them? And I'm like, yes, all the time. So I don't hardly ever turn down a show. If there is a show I've turned down, it's probably because I put in to photograph a show at the Smoothie King Center like months and months in advance before I even knew a show was going to be at my venue. So I am the only photographer right now for the house.
We would have
to fight each other for the photo passes.
yeah. The wrestling
What was that,
match,
Glenn? I
said
walked right over you.
Nah, I probably walked over you. We usually have to fight each other for photo passes. Sometimes we don't get, all access. We don't get one pass for the photographer or two maybe. So no, we all work together. It's all good.
The beginning of the year, we would have, and this is something we talked about putting in an episode all by itself.
right?
We would have what we call a draft night where all the photographers would get together at the venue and they would order us food and pizza and all that. And it was just like, a mini version of the NFL draft. And we'd pick a number out of a hat and who got the pick first. And then you'd go up and pick a show and write it on the board, the whole bit. And
It's fun.
we would negotiate and trade and things like that. We know certain guys, they know that I'm going to want all the big country shows. They like the big parties. We know that Jason, I'm pointing at you, Jason, I'm pointing at you on my screen. Very French. We know that Jason wants to work all the big rock shows. So, and we all try to work together. Like Glenn said, we try to work together and keep everybody, get them the shows they want. There's certain guys that don't want the shows that Jason and I might want. And like Drew, he'll want to work the Avett Brothers and the more, what's the word I'm looking for? Crunchy
kind of
or
music,
folksy type of stuff. That's his wheelhouse that he wants to shoot. So it's fun to work with these guys because we all have our little idiosyncrasies and we know what everybody likes now.
Yeah, it's fun. I'm the newest guy, so it's kind of fun. Just it's so exciting to go in and see that list of names, and you're like, oh man, I hope I get that band. I hope I get that band. Then you're like trying to trade off.
Do they have it already planned out like for the full year in advance?
Yeah,
we'll have our draft in like April.
Yep. So we'll know.
They'll start
the whole
normally
summer.
I'm sorry, Jason.
No, go ahead.
Normally without COVID, we would have shows being announced now.
Mhm.
So by the time we went to the venue in April, we would have 85% of the shows would be announced publicly, and they would know the other 4 or 5 shows that they're going to add to the schedule. And we would get those with an asterisk, like, okay, ABC band is coming in, and they may be here in August, but we can't announce that yet, and we don't know for sure. So you guys can at least plan on picking that, or these 4 shows from Jason Aldean are booked, but they're not announced yet. So we would know all that stuff going into that meeting.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, our shows are pretty like all over the place. Like they'll book things pretty sometimes last minute. I just basically keep our venue, the Fillmore's Facebook, like where I get notifications, because when they notify, like they have a show notification, I'm like, okay, got to put that on my calendar. So I basically have my schedule wide open for them because I want to make, a schedule for them so I can make sure to shoot all the shows.
No, when do your shows usually start to kick off, Jen? Like season beginning in what, April or?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I'm trying to think if there was like a slow, because I had only been shooting the venue's very new. Like I was they had just opened and I was the first photographer. So I was just kind of like learning that venue as it was going. So, but they were like super busy. It just seemed like it was very consistent. I think I want to say like, when was it less? I want to say probably like winter, like December, January was when it was not that busy. But then you start getting towards like, especially like March, April, May, then especially when festival season starts kicking in, they start getting the people coming through for festivals as one-offs. So we got a lot of that, especially starting in like April for sure. Because I mean, we had Hangout Fest is probably one of the closest festivals. Besides Jazz Fest, obviously, but that was one of the closest festivals that we saw. Like one-off shows were coming to us, and then when Jazz Fest happened and Voodoo Fest also, because that's also in New Orleans, we would get like what's like the Voodoo Fest, like what do they call it? Like it's kind of like the after hours shows. So it'd be like one-offs from Voodoo Fest. People that were playing Voodoo Fest would come into our show, which was really cool because we could see like really big bands. Like I want to say Bring Me the Horizon, who was playing at Voodoo Fest, came to our venue. So I got to see them twice, the night before they played and then at Voodoo Fest, because I shot Voodoo Fest too. So it was really cool because it just seemed like for our venue, it just seemed like it was back to back for that first year.
So yeah, your season window is far more than ours is, obviously, because we have snow.
Well, you're open all year round, whereas we're only open
Yeah.
during the warm season. So
Oh, that makes sense because it's outside. That makes sense.
Yeah,
Correct.
opening day
Yeah.
was typically right around Memorial Day,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
usually by the middle of September we're done.
Yeah.
They've had some shows in October in there. I think the last one we had in October we had Heart, and it was like 40 degrees. It was cold.
Yeah.
the
And then the other end, it's 90 degrees and we're dying.
Right.
100, yeah, totally. The you're doing publication shots for a wide variety of different locations and stuff like that. You ever get any offers to go on the road or anything like that?
No, I haven't. I've wanted to put in for it, but obviously with kids, it's kind of hard.
Yeah.
I mean, two of my kids are older. They're 18 and 21, but I have a 9-year-old, and I just, I would hate to be gone that long from her. So I haven't put in for that yet. I mean, that's still on the table. I still want to do that eventually. And I feel like there's so many opportunities for such cool shots. Like a lot of the images that I loved, like seeing, growing up were like portraits of bands and things like that. So to be able to, have opportunities to do portraits backstage and like those like backstage pictures of David Bowie and things like that, that's things I love. And I want to do that eventually.
Yeah.
So I do want to, if there was ever a good opportunity to do it, I probably would take it. I just haven't pursued it hard myself.
Sure. Yeah. Having a 7-year-old, I completely understand.
I can appreciate that. The nice thing about where we work is as you know, with Fillmore, the road comes to us.
Yeah.
You don't
Right.
have to go anywhere.
Yeah.
It's literally in my backyard. It's probably 3 miles from where I live.
Yeah. Nice.
And you can shower at home where
Yeah.
I don't know if I
I'm not like you sleeping in my car. No way.
Yeah. Station's got 2 hours. I've got one. So it's
Yeah.
not too bad.
Yeah. The is there any like any shows that like you're like you wish you haven't seen yet? Any shows you want to shoot yet that you haven't seen? Any artists or
Bucket
anything like
list.
that? Bucket list, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So what's funny is I have a bucket list, and every time I get to mark it off, I put like it moves up one. So actually,
Legit, like you have it written down?
I had it on my notepad on my phone. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So when I got to shoot Metallica, that was my number one.
Damn.
So then Green Day and what was my third? It was Lincoln Park, and it was right before I was actually had applied, or I was getting close to applying because it was too far out to shoot Lincoln Park. And then the news of Chester passing away was just like, that was a blow to the gut because I was a huge Lincoln Park fan.
Yeah.
Now my number one bucket list is My Chemical Romance. And, that was about to happen, that reunion tour. Right before COVID. So I was really hoping that I would get to be able to shoot that. So that's still my number one bucket list right now.
My daughter is 26. She would be very excited to hear you say that.
I've listened to them when they first came out. So I've been a fan for so long, but when they were really big, I hadn't gotten into photography yet. So, and it was around the time that I actually started getting into photography that they kind of, they had they were probably done by the time I actually started like getting into big shows.
Right.
So I'm hoping, I can shoot them when everything gets back to normal, whatever normal may be.
Yeah.
Were there any shows that you've seen that have really blown your mind? Like, am I really seeing this?
Yes. Metallica was one. And then the other was Taylor Swift. And, I wasn't a huge Taylor Swift fan until I saw her live, and I was blown away. It was for the Reputation Stadium tour. I have never seen, Metallica was like the biggest production I'd ever seen. And then when I saw Taylor Swift, I was like, I've never in my life seen that big of production in my entire life.
Really?
It was amazing.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, those are great shows. I mean, I am definitely with you on the Linkin Park thing. That was a huge blow to me. And that was one band that I always wanted to see that I never got to see, let alone shoot. So that was you've got to shoot some really awesome shows.
Well, I got to shoot Chester when he was with STP for a short time, but
cool.
I wanted to shoot Chester as Linkin Park with Shinoda and the whole band. So that was just a bucket list for me. And And unfortunately, that's just not going to happen. But, you know, I'm glad I got to shoot him when he was with STP at least.
That's
Yeah,
nice.
she's
I
got
shake my head.
1,700 posts. I can only imagine. I mean, that's a lot of show. That's cool. Your photos are incredible.
Thank you so much. I
Can't
really
wait to start looking at them. I'm just curious to see which ones you picked out.
Thanks for watching part 1 of our interview with Jenn Devereaux. We hope you enjoyed the episode. We're leaving you on a little bit of a cliffhanger here, where upcoming part 2, we will be diving into and learning about some of the stories behind her cool shots. Until then, check out our YouTube channel and talesfromthepit.net. We'll see you next time.